Yeah, good morning here in Denver to the project update session of the I18n and documentation team. That's a shared session. I'm responsible for the I18n team, and I want to start. I think it's going very quickly. Agenda, an introduction of the I18n team, the mission statement and the team structure, some facts about the Stein cycle, some news about I18n guide, something about the project doc translation, what we have done in the last cycle, the translation check site, which we also operate, and the goals for the next cycle, train. I'm Frank Löker, I'm Technology Manager Cloud Application at Deutsche Telekom. I was the previous project team lead in the last 3 cycles. I'm a team member also of the German translation team. I'm also a Docs core and worked in different working groups in 6 on the OpenStack Foundation project. The mission statement of the I18n project is to make the OpenStack accessible to people with all language backgrounds, by enhancing the OpenStack software with internationalization, providing translation, maintaining the translation platform, and managing translation process for better quality of outcomes. This is a map of our contributors in the I18n, especially for the translators, in the last 5 years. If you imagine, each color is one of the contributors, one of the translators, and we start in the Mittag cycle on the right side. The project was invented by Daisy from the Chinese user group. So at next in the Newton cycle, we had a lot of contributors from Chinese. This is the whole peak there in the Newton cycle. And then also it's continuous on the left side to Stein. You see also we have lots of long-term contributors on top. They are contributing from the beginning about the next cycles, about I think 1,000 of people, and some people contributing only 1 cycle or 2 cycles or 3 cycles. It's different. But I think it looks interesting. Some facts in numbers. We touched in Stein, like the last cycle, around 55 modules. We supported 18 languages. We had 55 active translators in the last cycle with the support from 9 companies. Our numbers are counted on Stackalytics. You can see the link there on stackalytics.com. Choose as metric the translation and release cycle, and you can see the numbers and names. Some highlights about our I18n guide. It's the way how to contribute as a translator in OpenStack. How to join a language team is already explained into the guide. How to handle translation bugs. Our tooling and translation infrastructure is explained. Also new is a PDL guide. If you want to be a PDL for the I18n group, it's also explained there, and what we do as team activities with releases. And the guide is also translatable and available in 8 languages at the moment. Project doc translation was the main thing in the last cycle, to make documentation for projects available in different languages. We had 3 early birds, the first thing OpenStack Ansible project, the OpenStack Helm, and the Horizon documentation. As the Horizon we have already in the translation platform, but the documentation is new. We had good progress in all main languages on all these books. This means the different books, what I think Stephen mentioned later, the user guide, admin guide, developer guide. We worked on the build process and the publishing process to improve this. And I think we are nearly done now with this early bird project. We have also a translation check site where you can check the translation immediately. If you go to the translation platform, translate something, you want to show this in the context, for example, like in Horizon, in the different menus, how this looks like or how this makes sense in your language if you have something translated. It's available on I18n external O2C Telekom Cloud.com. It's a sponsorship from the Deutsche Telekom. It's also hosted there. We had in this cycle also some improvements and enhancement contributed also to the OpenStack Ansible project because it's built with OpenStack Ansible. We have some modules more synced, so we have more modules also in the Horizon dashboard inside. Last thing also, Let's Encrypt support for OpenStack Ansible was contributed because you want to offer this also with HTTPS. Some train guards. At the moment we have some issues with the translation platform. The project is gone with the Sonata team in Australia. So we have to look at the moment for a new solution or halt the old solution. That's I think what we can discuss tomorrow at a project team gathering here in Denver. Continue also of the translation of the project docs. There are these 3 early birds. This is to decide. We go further with other documentation, we'll see. The next thing is also to migrate the project from the official project status to a special interested user group. We are thinking about this. I think this also to discuss on the project team gathering. So this is for the I18n group. We have their own mailing lists there. We have also an IRC channel. And we have an IRC team meeting on demand on each Thursday on different time spaces in the morning or the afternoon. Yeah, that's it.
I'll give you that. Please work. Okay, this is not going to work. Thank you, Linux. Okay, so while I try and figure that out, a quick introduction. My name's Stephen. I'm the Docs PTL for the current cycle. The Docs project, initially was the project that owned pretty much every bit of documentation that was end-user focused within OpenStack. So that would include installation guides, user guides, admin guides, configuration guides, the whole gamut. Since maybe about 2 or 3 cycles ago, most of the documentation that was once centrally managed has been split out into each individual project. So, for example, the Compute Nova project own their own documentation, their own install guides, end-user guides, and so forth. Ditto for Neutron and the various libraries. Nowadays, so that means nowadays that the documentation team is pretty much acting in like a facilitatory role. We have a couple of tech writers on the team, and we also have a couple of developers. The developers work to introduce like Sphinx extensions and this kind of thing, just to make our documentation lives a little bit easier. And then the tech writers will provide a little kind of expertise, information architecture expertise for individual project teams that want some help structuring their documentation. So during the Stein cycle, the main change that we introduced was switching everything to use Python 3. Python 2.7, its death is impending, and the documentation aspects of most projects, that was seen as an easy win for starting the movement across to Python 3. So virtually every project within the OpenStack ecosystem now should be building the documentation using Python 3. The other thing, which I can't show a screenshot of because my laptop won't work, we've introduced a banner at the top of all our documentation that gives you an easy way of switching between different versions and emphasizes the versions of various OpenStack projects that are still supported, in preview, and so forth. And finally then, we had some operator-focused documentation that was previously owned by the Docs team. There were some issues in terms of keeping this up to date and maintaining it. We juggled a few different ideas, from transitioning stuff to wikis to generating PDFs, and we finally settled on moving this to its own SIG, and those guys now own the ops documentation. As far as future-looking stuff go, same as the internationalization team, we are considering transitioning our role to a SIG. The main advantage of this would be we want to kind of encourage people to come in when they have a particular problem that they want to solve, come collaborate with us, help us, we can help them fix this issue that they want to solve, and then they can drop back off the radar if they want to. As part of this, we'll be probably transitioning most of our tooling into the Oslo project. Oslo being being made up of people with a fairly general skill set, and then the documentation that we still own will continue to be owned by the SIG. So this is probably going to involve a lot of paperwork, but outside of that, there probably won't be too much big changes to see up front. As far as contributions go, most of the contributions you'll want to be making are going to be made to each individual project. So if you're interested in the compute project on networking, you'll go to Nova or Neutron, respectively. The documentation team is still available on IRC and on the OpenStack Discuss mailing list. If you have specific concerns around kind of the general tooling that we use within OpenStack, we're available for that and happy to help out. And we still own some documentation, general contribution guides for OpenStack as a whole, and a few other things. And we're happy to naturally accept contributions to any of those projects. And yeah, in terms of contribution, talk to your friendly neighborhood project maintainer, talk to the Nova guys, talk to the Neutron guys, and so forth, and they'll be happy to help. And that is pretty much all that I have from the documentation side. So either of us will be happy to take any questions or concerns that anyone has, and if not, thanks everyone for coming.
The slides will be provided on the schedule of the OpenStack Summit later.
Yeah,
you can see this.
You can actually see them. It worked. Cool, all right, thank you everyone.
Thank you.